I got
Okay,
about
recorded.
250 hours of recordings I want to go back and watch from different
Right.
meetings. But I like one more. Yeah, let's do it.
It'll happen, Matt. It'll happen. Just
Yeah.
keep the faith. Keep the faith.
Just adding it to my playlist. I'll try
I
to sneak it into evening watching at home once we get our little man to bed. See how that plays at home.
Yeah, go put you right to sleep. That's how that's gonna, at least that would me. So I want to just acknowledge that this is a new concept, if you will, framework. And so while we are borrowing some parts of the playbook, we're kind of writing a new playbook too at the same time. So, and recognizing this merger concept is also new to us. This, I don't, at least in my history, have not had an exact similar experience. So we have thrown around a bunch of ideas, and I think Matt can give some good guidance around kind of how we think about the branding piece, but I'll let him kind of unpack that a little further.
Sure. So I guess a little historical context. When I arrived at Mentor almost 5 years ago now, we had 20 something affiliates with 20 something different brands with different naming conventions. We talked about an affiliate network, but no one else would have any understanding that all of these affiliates of Mentor National were connected. Mentor National didn't exist as a term. From a branding standpoint, I was walking into a disaster. It was wonderful in terms of the work that was being done, but it was disorganized. It was difficult to talk about from an external affairs standpoint. So with Mentor National and the way our structure is, it's a beautiful thing. We don't have any authority over affiliates in any way. It's not like the Big Brothers Big Sisters model where you can close chapters or open chapters or merge chapters or paying into a fee to be a part of the brand. It's none of those things, which I think makes us really unique. It's really an amazing opportunity of people coming together because of mutual gain. So with that in mind, we really had to think about, Art, if we were going to go about rebranding with our affiliates, we needed to create a value proposition that made sense, that affiliates on their own would choose, yes, this makes sense. We want to adopt a national brand, a common logo. We needed to get those first affiliates on board to use the Mentor heart that Joelle and I are both wearing on our chest this morning and do often. The idea of that one day becoming a symbol of the mentoring field. The way for a lot of people, the blue puzzle piece is not just a blue puzzle piece. It's become a symbol in the fight against autism. We'd love for one day for the Mentor heart to mean that for our field as a unifying symbol that programs are using, that a lot of folks are using. So that's the big vision. From there, what we've really tried to do is create a set of assets to make it really easy for affiliates to choose to adopt the brands. And I start there because that was one of the first pieces that we were working on. And I think it's really relevant here in terms of the goal of consistency, so that when Sadiq is leading an amazing project, it makes perfect sense for Mentor Nebraska to talk about what you all are doing and say, this, these are our brothers and sisters from across the country, part of our organization. And that's really the power of where we're trying to go from a consistency standpoint. Mentor National has tried to create every resource we can think of, and every time we do it, we get a little better. Sadiq had ideas right after you all adopted the national brand in terms of, for the next folks, we also should have this resource. So it's everything from the logo to business card templates to PowerPoint templates to all of these different resources. Mentor National will provide for free. Pop-up banners is something else that was added where everyone wanted to have pop-up banners back when we did in-person events. So we created a template there. Hopefully we'll get back to that at some point. And press release templates in terms of getting to announce this, just so we have to do the bare minimum in terms of just staff hours and effort to make this really successful, making sure we're not recreating the wheel and really taking advantage of our efficiency of scale. So that's a lot of the background here. As Joella mentioned, this one's different. This is not the launch of a new affiliate that we did with Sadiq not that long ago. This is instead our first expansion. So we have 24 affiliates around the country. Most affiliates are statewide. We have 2 affiliates in Pennsylvania who are part of the state. And this is going to be our first affiliate that crosses a state line. and that's an exciting opportunity for us. And we need to tell the story. I would say from my standpoint, we just need to make sure that Mentor Washington, in terms of Washington State, and Mentor Virginia, both feel really comfortable with the direction we choose, and that we don't create brand confusion for the two of them in our solution. But outside of that, we just want to be here to support you all in this work, create every resource, template, graphic that you possibly could use to make this smooth. Sadiq, anything else you wanted me to hit there?
No, I think that's great. I think that's great context. Just again, in terms of sort of solidifying, looks like Joellen wants to add something.
Yeah, I was
in
just
terms
going
of
to say
solidifying.
that, Matt, and we can get into this, but there are parameters about what we can and can't do with the brand. So we just need to be honest with people about that too. So once we get into other dimensions of the naming ideas, we can talk about what parameters we have.
Absolutely. Both in terms of the name and then all the brand guidelines and those kind of things. To get to that level of consistency, it's really important that we're not doing things, changing the colors, putting the logo onto backgrounds where colors disappear, all kinds of things that every brand has. We have brand guidelines and all of those kind of things to try to protect the mark. But it's something that's really designed from a collaborative standpoint. We don't want to be the brand police. We want to kind of be brand educators to the extent possible. So yeah, all those logistics we can help with and help train whoever Sadiq on the team is going to be working on those details.
Awesome. Any questions or thoughts for Joellen or Matt team?
This is Amy. Hi. Can you talk a little bit about your outreach strategy? Typically, I guess we can base it more on launching a new affiliate, but we can apply it to our circumstance.
Yeah,
and I'm talking about communications,
yeah, absolutely.
All audiences, including even media opportunities.
Yep, we have some great examples from different affiliates as they either rebranded or launched of actually getting some media pickup. Generally, it's getting influencers to wear or hold up a t-shirt of the new brands. Those kinds of things, I would definitely immediately create some swag, and we can help you with those orders and everything else. In this day and time, maybe we want masks that folks can wear. Maybe it's t-shirts and sweatshirts and hats. But just things that we can give. You want to get local politicians, you want to get local influencers and athletes to wear the brand, to welcome, X entity, once we figure out the name, to the region of DC. Can we get the mayor to do something that then media will pick up? How can we do this on social media? We really are more opportunistic in this than anything, in terms of what are the relationships we have, who is willing to talk about this, what are our connections, who could be part of the welcome committee, can we get donated billboards to welcome the Mentor affiliate network to DC. Those types of opportunities, there's a long list of potentials, and we look at where we can drive without having to spend money. We want to really try to save as much budget as possible for the work itself, as opposed to kind of bragging about ourselves. So it's a question of kind of those donated relationships. But does that answer enough of kind of some of the ideas of where we've gone in the past?
Yeah, that sounds very exciting. And maybe we can get more granular, as we work through this. But love the broad thinking on this.
Yeah, and could do a brainstorming session with the full board, with any other supporters. The best wins are going to come locally from an idea set nationally, but nationally we haven't been able to get local press to care about this. It's been local connections that have gotten the press engaged and others. So we'll come with a playbook and a list, and then really need the local implementation to make it sing.
And I know the storytelling, will be an important component here. Examples of the impact that mentoring relationships have made, and we can make it timely with COVID and how that has exacerbated perhaps, the need for this. So look forward to more thinking on that.
I know I was just with Christina Hilsenrath, who does the Sunday morning local Fox show, and I've been on a couple times, and she just asked for us to come again during National Women's Month, but I mentioned Sadiq, and so I think you could, again, there would have to be a story. I don't think, we'd have to link it to a nice story, but I think for sure, she just reached out to me, so I think we could get on the Sunday morning. It's a political one, but she likes to cover some of these human interest stories.
That's all. What's her name, Leslie?
Christina Hilsenrath. She's the producer.
Okay.
Well, I was gonna say in April, there's National Volunteer Week, so maybe there's one thread there. And then I was thinking too, kind of Amy, along your lines, like we'll have to have a good answer for the why now. That's not just, because this has been a long time coming. I think there needs to be like a bit of a, story or a thread there. And so maybe that's Volunteer Week, or maybe it's, something to do with the pandemic or something like that.
And then just to add to more other themes, Matt, correcting me if I'm wrong, I believe next month is like youth spotlight. So maybe if we can bring a DC program, a mentor and a mentee on the Sunday show, that would be like a lot of mentoring stories right there.
Absolutely. Yeah, we do have monthly themes that we try to have the entire mentoring field kind of talking about the same thing at the same time and trying to rise above the noise. And April's theme is around youth voice. So Sarah, thank you, and excited that. It means we're getting through. So every month having a different theme, wanting to be really clear. It doesn't mean it's the only month we're talking about a certain theme, but that we're trying to elevate stories together. One of the interesting questions for you when you think about bringing in a mentor-mentee match from the DC area is showing existing matches that have been doing great work for a long time doesn't necessarily show why the expansion needs to happen. It's trying to tell that story in a really interesting way to show the importance of the unifying force of the field. We just need to get that messaging right, and I'm sure we will, in terms of every young person deserving this type of relationship and those types of things. So we'll want to talk a little bit about the need and the number of children in the DC area growing up without access to that caring adult mentor outside their family.
Awesome. I really appreciate the point too, really quickly, and which is part of one of the reasons I was so excited again about Allison joining and on the cusp of joining the Maryland Mentor Board, but having those deep relationships locally, I think is so important. So both Allison as well as so many strong existing relationships coming from the existing Mentorprise Board, I think is going to be so critical to engage and activate in potentially new ways around helping to tell the story, to generate that buzz and excitement. So I think that's just such a critical point. Leslie, you and I, we've chatted a little bit in the past even about, how do we almost, be very intentional and strategic about almost deputizing the junior board of Mentorprise, right? That like junior advisory board of Mentorprise, and almost turn them into like almost like a street team, right? Of again, ambassadors for the new deal, just in terms of how many of them still want to be involved and engaged, obviously. But I just look at that group as one example that each one of them has their own individual network, and obviously you all know them much better than I do. But there's so many existing relationships that again we'd be crazy to not tap into. Cool. Do we want to talk a little bit about the branding, and then we can jump into like the actual expansion story? So so myself and Joellen and Matt, I don't even remember who else was in that conversation, so forgive me. There's been a lot of meetings over the last several months, but we began throwing some ideas on the wall just in terms of what would the new sort of naming convention be for this expanded affiliate. And I thought this would be a good time to sort of share some of those out. And I think, Matt, we settled on two, or not settled, but sort of threw out two main ideas, which were, one was Mentor Greater Washington, Mentor Maryland Greater Washington. And just a little bit of funny story too. I don't know if everybody knows this, but we are Maryland Mentor, right? Very intentionally. So just completely FYI, feel free to Google Mentor Maryland. There's actually another organization called Mentor Maryland that really focuses on more in the foster care sort of family unification space, which is very, very, very interesting. So we ended up becoming Maryland Mentor. So this merger and expansion opportunity presents us a clean pathway to get back on the more widely and common naming convention of mentor, right, blank region, or mentor, blank state, which is pretty exciting to put us sort of back in the fold all the way, so to speak. So again, it was Mentor Maryland Greater Washington, or there was Mentor Maryland DC, very clean. And then we had some conversation around, would it be like, and I can type these really quickly. Type these in the chat box.
What is the plan with the Virginia affiliate? Are they going to be covering Northern Virginia?
Yeah, Sadiq and I had a long conversation with the Mentor Virginia team and unpacked where they have some overlap in terms of services and supports and that sort of thing. I think we agreed that it made sense from a geographic point of view. They'd continue to serve programs that are in the Northern Virginia area. And we would set up regular times to just keep checking in with each other to make sure that we're synced up. But I think they were equally excited about this expansion and the way that it's going to kind of fill some of the gaps that we've had.
So there will be some overlap in Virginia, or that will, so
Well,
just as you talk
I
about.
think, well, overlap only in the sense, and Sadiq, clean this up after I say what I'm going to say, that I think our thought is, if it makes sense, no matter where the program exists geographically, they should feel like they could get support from either Mentor Maryland DC or Mentor Virginia. So they would, in some cases, have access to both of the affiliates in their work. And particularly those relationships that Mentor Virginia already has with programs, they would keep those relationships and build on those. But it offered some collaborative opportunities for Mentor Maryland DC and Mentor Virginia. So they might be doing some more shared training. There might be some ways they do events together. I think kind of the sky's the limit on that. And Mentor Virginia crew was totally open to that.
Great.
No cleanup necessary. I'll just hone in again, just the regular, thoughtful communication, right? And that professional courtesy, that's gonna be what powers everything from here on out. But, Jennifer is an amazing colleague, and I'm excited about being able to work a little bit more closely with them when the opportunities present. So any thoughts on these names though, while we have everybody, or is there another option, right? It's fairly straightforward,
I was a little curious about like a Mentor Mid-Atlantic. Would that be an option, just because there's been a few mergers of organizations I've seen kind of over the last bit of pandemic, Playworks, Leukemia Lymphoma Society, and that's the direction they went when it was across state lines. Throw it out for consideration.
Or maybe Mentor, though I don't know that anyone outside the DMV knows what DMV means, but is Mentor DMV a potential? Or does that make the Maryland part too much? I don't know.
We bandied that one about, Dina, and it was almost like you said, the DMV to the DMV folks is a very exclusive, cliquey thing. Being from the DMV and now living in Baltimore, it is the funniest conversation ever between Baltimore folks and like DMV, like loyalists, almost like zealots. Baltimore is not part of the DMV, and Baltimore folks, for what it's worth, don't want to be part of the DMV either. So
I didn't even know that. Okay, then that takes that right off the table.
It's a debate that rages on, with all its hilarity. So we thought that for a split second, but we're like, this alienates 75% of the rest of the market.
Let's not do that. Okay. It's gotta be something, but.
And if I Google Mid-Atlantic, it includes Pennsylvania and Delaware. So I think that.
Yeah, we, for a little more context, we just, again, in our structure of not having power over things, one of our affiliates is Mentor Independence Region. And that's because they're part of Big Brothers Big Sisters Independence Region. which is not a term I'd ever heard of, which I guess is the greater Philadelphia area. But by saying Philadelphia, it alienates folks who are in Southern Jersey who feel like, no, we're not a Philadelphia suburb, all those kind of things. So they like that internally. From a Mentor National standpoint, it is a practice we want to avoid. It is our equivalent of a worst practice in terms of no one else knows what the heck that means. So we had to make that work there, but it's something we ideally wouldn't want to go back to unless it's really clear. So if Mid-Atlantic is exactly clear for the two areas we're talking about, we should do it. And if it's not, and it doesn't make sense to other parts of the country and potential funders, I might suggest avoiding it. It's definitely a whole lot better than Independence Region. I'm not trying to connect those two, but just wanting to share some of the issues we've had really transparently, and things that ideally we try to avoid. But you know, we also got to find the right local balance that makes sense.
I'm curious about the name. Oh, sorry. I'm curious about the name Mentor MD-DC. Where's the VA? Or do we not care to have VA because we already have a mentor?
Yeah, we already have an affiliate in Virginia, so we would not add VA to the naming convention.
But we're still going to serve Virginia, but not mention it in the name?
Well, that's because Mentor Virginia is serving that area. So in terms of, we think of it in terms of coverage, not so much in terms of, I mean, the naming, to be honest with you, I think we should avoid adding Virginia to anything in terms of your coverage.
The only other thought I had was something, you know, like a mentor like Chesapeake or something, but then that gets confusing with Virginia. And to Matt's point, I think, you know, keeping it from a donor mission perspective of Maryland, DC, you know, I think we don't have to get, my view is we don't have to get super creative with the name. It's more utility to understand what regions we're serving and follows that kind of generic mentoring brand. And then obviously we'll get more creative with the story of and the purpose, but you don't want to create confusion, as Matt was saying, on, you know, what areas we're serving. So
I would just say, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that living in this area, I think you want to go with Greater Washington, because there's so many people who live in Virginia and work in DC and vice versa. And I just feel like if you just say I'm serving Maryland, and if it's Maryland, DC, it may cause some confusion. And I think if you say Greater Washington, it just, if Virginia doesn't mind, Maryland, Mentor Virginia doesn't mind, I think that Greater Washington is going to cause less confusion. That would just be my, of the two, I would.
And it's almost like, again, so for folks that know the DMV, Greater Washington is the more formal way of saying DMV, but it doesn't explicitly call out the V either, which eliminates some of the confusion that Mike just spoke about, which I think is an excellent point, saying Maryland, you know, DC or Maryland, Greater Washington, it sends a clear-cut signal where we work, where we support. But for the DMV folks, Greater Washington is also more inclusive because it's a DMV thing. When you say Maryland, they're not talking about me, because Maryland is Harford County and Baltimore and Frederick. Greater Washington, though, is DC, that's Montgomery, that's Prince George's, that is, you know, certain parts of Nova, right? So I agree that Greater Washington is more inclusive without being offensive to the rest of Maryland. And hence why this conversation
question
is so
for you
important.
all there. As soon as a name becomes potentially that long, it's going to be a month or two before you all start shortening it. And everybody does. So just thinking about that piece, is Mentor Maryland Greater DC appropriate, or is that just not how you all would speak locally?
You could say Greater DC. I think Greater DC would also work, because people here know it. I just could see like, oh, I live, you only serve, if it says Maryland DC, you're going to have people at a table like, well, I live in Virginia. Can I mentor still through here? And that's just my opinion. Sort of historically, people are like, oh, this, this mentoring program is in DC, but I work in Virginia, or, so I think it just sort of will somehow including a greater concept.
Is Leslie, do people call it like capital region? Or would that, like, I'm just trying to think, shortening that greater Washington. I completely agree with you we obviously don't want to alienate any donor, anyone that would not feel that this is inclusive of themselves. And as, not a DC person, I think it's helpful to hear, your guys' perspective of what would be a name that resonates with everyone, and just trying to shorten that. So
I was thinking capital region, capital area too, but was curious if that's too exclusive of Baltimore then, because I think there's a not always an alignment with that being as comprehensive.
Yeah, I personally kind of hate greater DC. I think from a colloquial standpoint, sort of like an internal communications, I think to Matt's point, we'll be known as Mentor Maryland DC, sort of like internally, but I think to the greater audience, to the greater stakeholder community, I think I'd probably be more inclined with the greater Washington as well. I think capital region feels, that's almost like, again, independence region, like folks, outside of this market really don't know what that is.
Because that's United Way's name, and then like Girl Scouts is National Capital Area.
Sure.
So they have like variations on it, but it's still a little bit unclear, like what they're all, it doesn't tell you immediately what the coverage is. Like Girl Scouts goes all the way out to West Virginia, so.
What about like Maryland metro area? Is that a common saying? I'm not a DC native either, so I don't know if that works or not. Might be too many M's.
That actually is kind of cool. I like a little.
Yeah.
This is a super future thinking question and might not even be relevant at all, but it just popped in my head. If DC becomes a state, I'm just wondering if this might all be a moot point. I don't know. Has anyone heard anything along those lines about like naming and all of that?
They're always talking about it.
Yeah, like a rename to Douglas or some aspect of that. Like there is a bit of a name change, I think, on the table.
Okay, just a thought.
It's an interesting one.
Just as I Googled it as well, just so it's the Washington metropolitan area, also known as the National Capital Region, and as the DMV for DC. So we've hit them all. Colloquially,
right.
Oh my God.
I have tried to put in the chat some of the ideas we're talking about. This needs to resonate for all of you locally. It needs to make sense for folks outside of the area. So just wanting to see it. The official Mentor Maryland, Greater Washington, shorthands, Mentor Maryland, DC. Maybe there's some type of punctuation between Maryland and DC, even in the shorthands, something to decide. That's one potential. One of the questions, how often, trying to fast forward a year from now, how often do you feel like you'll be using the official? And are you creating any potential confusion if you're not using it often? If you're going to shorthand it often, then maybe you want to go with the shorthand. Just something to think about as you're going. If you feel really comfortable with the idea that Mentor Maryland, Greater Washington is going to fit nicely in all the places you want to use the brands, and the font won't get too small, and all of those kinds of questions, you could go with that. And then if you feel like you're going to end up shorthanding it so often, I might suggest going to the shorthand. So it's a tough future looking question, but something you want to actively think about.
I'm all for consistency of branding. Agreed.
It's a tough one. Why don't we table this for now? Perhaps we can send out maybe a survey or something like that. Me and Sada can put together a survey and just have folks vote via a quick and dirty survey, and allow folks a little bit of time to ruminate. Maybe again, if there's some other options that folks want to throw out there later on. I'm just looking at the time, and we definitely want to spend I'm imagining the last portion of our conversation around some ideas for angles around the expansion story. So if everybody's cool with that, we can move on.
Sadiq, does it make sense for maybe Leslie and Amy to maybe socialize some of these with some of their main constituents and donors, just to see if, they have a, preference to, to have that inclusivity of, what, or does that not, I just don't think that would matter.
I love that idea. Or Leslie, what do you think?
I'm just trying to think, you're the ones that, you like the Greater Washington. If we went from DC to Greater Washington, does this matter? Are we overthinking this? Does this matter? What if, I don't know, someone that's not from there?
I think we're going to have a very similar conversation just on all there's pros and cons to both. And I think if you decide that sticking with DC is just, it's keeping it shorter and sweeter, and you want to be consistent and do that, and that is more important, then I think then you should go in that direction. I just, there will be some, I just think there might be some confusion because you're spelling out Maryland and you're spelling out DC and you're leaving out Virginia. If you said DC, we all think about the metropolitan DC area, so I don't think that's problematic. But I think when you say Maryland and DC specifically, there's automatic that creates a little bit of the confusion. But DC,
that was my immediate reaction. That's why I wondered why the Virginia was. But anyway, we've talked it to death. But.
Yeah. So I think it's just picking which is more important to you all. There will be some confusion.
Well, Leslie, if I could interject, it's we're a week away. There is no more you all. It's only us. So we want this to work for ideally for all of it. It's no more you all or you all or us all. It's only big us, capital U us now. We all what they say, we came in different different boats. We all in the same ship now. So yeah, it's only us. So whatever.
I guess when I say you all, I mean the marketing folks, honestly, on this.
Oh, okay.
I'm not a marketer. I'm just pointing out that I think if you spell out Maryland and you spell out DC, that creates a little confusion, but it is more important to have the consistency. It's not unsurmountable. You just may have to explain it sometimes. I defer to you all, the marketing folks, on what is the best way to go on this.
Sure. And I'd love to spend some time unpacking a little more exactly what we intend to do with Northern Virginia versus Mentor Virginia in terms of that kind of shared support. So that can happen in a separate meeting. If someone lives in Northern Virginia, is their ideal first step to go to Sadiq, or is it to go to Mentor Virginia? I feel like as we answer that question a little bit, that might help us with the question of confusion of the Greater Washington area overall versus not.
And I think the one thing that we talked at length with the Virginia team is a customer, potential mentor, or potential mentor program shouldn't have to sit there and figure that out. Pick up the phone, call, reach out internet, and our affiliates will figure out the best way to serve them. So it shouldn't be confusing to the customer, so to speak, in the sense of doesn't matter who they call, they're going to get help.
Got it. All right, cool. So are we saying just to close this loop, Leslie, Amy, Dina, like no need to sort of send out any sort of survey or speak to any of the other sort of like local stakeholders in the DMV about their thoughts on this? Just kind of keep it internal.
Yeah, keep it internal, I think.
Okay. So do we think it's necessary? Because I'm trying to think of, again, just a democratic way to move us forward in terms of, the Greater Washington versus the DC piece, because that's, essentially where the conversation began and where it's ending right now. So I'm thinking, again, just of a vote, because again, like we've just said, both have merit, both make sense. There's pros and cons to both, but just so we can be clear in the next step here, because this is a major kind of decision, our first major decision after merger.
As one part of the next step, I would suggest having my team at National put together the logo both horizontally and vertically for both, and have you really see them, think about all the places you'll utilize them that may impact the decision. So I want you all to be able to see it. We're close enough now that it's not too much work for us to create the 2 logos and then report back to help inform your decision.
And then we'll put that in the survey and send that out for folks to vote on. Thank you, Matt. All right, so Amy, Dina, I guess we'll pass it to you all just for some of the thoughts around like the initial sort of expansion, story, direction. We've had some good conversation around just like general ideas, more broad ideas around the overall expansion. So definitely, I think we can have a deeper conversation as Matt just offered to do, like another brainstorm session with all of us. But just wanted to get you all's thoughts on what you're thinking so far around the actual expansion story.
Well, my part of it is very specific in that I'm going to sort of write a draft of what would go on the web page at the end, sort of explaining how Mentorprise and Maryland, Mentor Maryland. Now I'm getting mixed up with the names. Mentor Maryland came together, and so I've been sitting on all the meetings, and I understand why we want to merge with you guys. But what I was hoping to hear is why you want us as part of your group, so that would help me flesh out what I'm going to write. And I just haven't been privy, obviously, to your meetings and so on. So I just wanted to get a sense of why you think this is a good union, so that I can explain it a little more clearly.
I'm just taking some notes over here.
I mean, if I can, I'll take a shot at it. You guys can add or subtract anything to what I say, but we've kind of alluded a little bit to how, we might be Maryland, we might be DC, we might be Virginia, but we're all kind of one area. And I think National has been looking for a reason to move into DC. And I think that this opportunity with Mentorprise is the perfect timing. I think it's the perfect timing, and I think it's something that has been wanted to happen. I think you guys have great connections, and girls, ladies, have great connections and great services in the DC area, and I just think that this is a too easy of a way to expand to not do it. We seem to like each other, and it's I think it's just something that will work out well. That probably wasn't very eloquent. I'm sure you're not going to quote me on the story there, but I think that's the general high level reason.
I echo all of that, and again, as a finer point is, I think you all have developed some deep expertise again in that mentor recruitment, partnership, sort of development, relationship building space, having amassed, a really solid group of partners from what I know, which I think is just awesome, for us to be able to build on some of that partnership development and be able to look at serving some of these existing partners in an even deeper and more well-rounded capacity. I think is very, very exciting. So I would say again that the deep expertise that you guys have built, I think the partnerships and relationships that you all have built really serve as a strong foundation to go even deeper around our ability to serve ultimately the young people of Greater Washington or the DMV or the National Capital Region.
Have you guys decided to stay on with the, recruiting mentors and, to determine what their interests are? I know that was part of what we did, but are you guys going to keep that going?
And the short answer is yes, in some form or fashion. We're still trying to figure out how much, from an overall percent standpoint, right, of our work will that be? But the short answer is yes, absolutely. And I think somewhere in the middle, we probably, what I can say right now, like my current thinking is that obviously it won't be as aggressive or as in-depth as what Mentorprise was known for, But certainly, I think we can be more intentional and do more as this newly, this newly expanded organization by way of mentor recruitment. So somewhere in the middle, but short answer again is yes.
And Gina, one other piece from a national standpoint, and Sadiq and I haven't even gotten to chat about this yet, but one of our goals with the Mentoring Connector, which is our key national recruitment tool, is that we're really going to improve the front end of that system to be able to better, just have a better UX and to better support users' needs as they're looking for mentoring opportunities. So that's something that gets promoted nationally by the NBA and the Obama Foundation and LinkedIn and Starbucks and Nike, sending people to the Mentoring Connector. And we want to make sure the experience there is better and it does more of understanding volunteers' interests to help get them to the right program. So over the course of the next 6 to 9 months, that more automated system is going to have a pretty significant overhaul from the public standpoint, to hopefully be able to do that work without being a very expensive and from a time commitment standpoint nationally. And then, every one of our affiliates, once that's done, is going to decide to what extent is that serving all the needs, or is there more staff hours that need to be spent on that?
And as being part of the affiliate, how does that sort of expand? How does it expand Menterprise's reach? What can I say about that as far as becoming an affiliate?
Well, I think it opens up the full, arsenal, if you will, of affiliate Mentor National tools, research products, studies, and again, just deep network expertise. Again, it's really like, going from, a couple of arrows in the quiver to a full quiver. I think of, what's our guy from the Avengers, Hawkeye, right? He got the exploding arrows, he got the grappling hook arrows, he's got the, the incendiary arrows. So I really look at it as being able to just sort of expand the
So the toolbox is just fuller.
That's exactly right. That's
Okay.
exactly right.
All right.
I guess specifically it's with the training and the technical support, right? Those are the two main areas, right, that we weren't able to offer before.
The
And-
training. Okay.
And like I said, for me, those are just two of, again, a bunch more.
Right.
But I know those are two, I think, that drew you all in, but there's so much more. There's so much more. And again, to one of the points that was made earlier, like our network has deep expertise. So we don't know something as, Mentor Maryland, DC, or Mentor Virginia or New York. Guess what? We have colleagues in Colorado. We have colleagues in Vermont. We have colleagues in New York to help us problem solve. And they might create, we literally just had, so I'm actually on the MAC Council, which is an internal council of leaders across the affiliate network. So we just had our monthly MAC meeting just yesterday. And this is one of the things that we actually chatted about. And that is, this idea of how do we, really do a better job of sharing innovation across the network, because amazing ideas, sometimes stuff that we don't even think about, again, it might be bubbling up in Kansas, and, through our communication channels, they will share that, and now, boom, that's something that now we can introduce to the DMV, or that's something that we can introduce in New York, so on and so forth. So, it's not just about the tools, it's also about being a part of this network that is a learning network, that is a network chock full of expertise, that is a network that's chock full of passion and different experiences. And I think, again, we're able to now bring all of that collectively to bear. It's an amazing opportunity. And I'm still excited about training and technical assistance, by the way, but I'm like, man, it's got a lot of arrows.
The training is for the mentors in particular?
Mentors and mentoring program leads, most importantly. So our core audience will remain mentoring programs, mentoring program leads and directors and founders and program staff, with a very, very close second audience being mentors themselves, for sure.
Perfect. Okay. That's all I need. Thank you.
Matt and Joellen,
Just
can you
said
tell
what
us
you-
about
Here.
what you usually do with a press release? I'm really excited about the other things you mentioned, and getting ambassadors or influencers. I think that's going to be great. But what do we do with a press release in this case?
Yeah, we have a template. Krista in week one hasn't even seen it yet, but we have a template from other affiliate launches, rebrands that I think we can customize to give you a lot of the information, and then you'll really take it and put in local language and some of the discussion we just had. And then it's about getting it out there. And that's where it comes back to relationships, where, we're in the relationship field for young people, but it's also, that's the world of media. So the producer that Leslie mentioned earlier, it's going to be those personal outreach that's going to do something. This going on a press wire is not exciting news. It's it's kind of back office business related. Maybe there's a local corporate social responsibility publication that would do a little paragraph about this, those kinds of things. But for the most part, it's really going to be about the relationships of who you can get to tell the story. We'll have the press release as a tool. I haven't seen the release unto itself be a main driver of success of getting people to know about this, but we'll definitely have a press release that we can support y'all to create.
And if I can add in like two really, really important pieces, which again is all part of our latest thinking around actual expansion activities. And that is, I agree wholeheartedly with you, Matt, is that the press release in and of itself is, that's nothing. That's like, is literally nothing. What we have to make sure that as we begin laying out our plan for launch activities, right, is that press release leads folks to something, to do something, to get involved something. So i.e., in that press release saying, you know what, hey, we're doing this thing. It's an amazing thing. Come get involved by visiting, mentorgreaterwashington.org for the list of town halls, right, that we're going to be holding virtual town halls around Washington, D.C., right? Join us, right, for one of these conversations around mentoring, right, as we gather groups of stakeholders around how you can get involved in the mentoring field and the mentoring movement across the greater Washington, right? And or along with that, launching, and we might do that this summer, some sort of, very, very DMV specific mentor recruitment campaign. So that way we're now offering via the press release at least two very, very specific pathways for folks to get involved, either again, attend one of these virtual town halls and sort of, info sessions, meet and greet sessions about the leaders in the mentoring field in the greater Washington area, A, and then B, if you can't make one of those, hit the mentoring connector or hit greater Washington, whatever.org/mentoring and sign up to become a mentor like yesterday. So making sure that we chalk this press release full of action items, right? And that's one of the things that we talk about internally as our team, right? Every single time we interact with a program, we're always leading them to the next step. So, hey, you attended this training? Well, what's the next thing? Oh, don't worry about it. We got 4 more trainings coming up. If you can't miss any of those, boom, we got this other thing coming up. So oh, you missed that? We got our virtual conference scheduled for August 12th and 13th, which is a real thing, by the way, too, FYI. So we want to make sure, and we gotta think about that branding too for the virtual conference. That's going to be a great opportunity. But I just say all that to say the press release in and of itself has to be a living, breathing document. I know folks got to wrap up, so just wanted to share those thoughts really quickly.
The technical issue, are we calling it a merger, an acquisition? What's the terminology?
I think we go ahead and go with the merger, to be honest. I mean, I don't really know.
I haven't heard acquisition much in the nonprofit world. I think merger has a kind of relationship tone would be my vote as well.
It sounds positive.
Mhm.
And Sadiq, I love all of your ideas. Call to action is what we want to accomplish with the release.
That's right.
And
Absolutely.
I look
And
forward to brainstorming other ideas of what we might include. I also think, back to storytelling examples, we have to make sure that we're communicating what this is about. It's about people, coming together, and the impact that this relationship has, on both for the mentor and particularly the mentee. So maybe we can find some of those best examples from both Mentor Prize and Maryland Mentor to include, and maybe it's in the form of, some quotes. We can figure out how to capture that, what we really do.
Yes.
Sadiq, is there a program that might have 2 location sites, one in DC and one in Maryland, where you've done amazing work for the Maryland chapter, and you can get their executive director to say, I'm so excited for the larger footprint to now be able to serve our DC chapter as well?
That's great. There's 3 that come to mind right off top. US
Perfect.
Dream Academy, Higher Achievement, and Urban Alliance all have Baltimore and DC offices. That's a great idea.
Perfect. So yeah, if you can get one of the either the leaders of both or the Baltimore leader to talk about the impact that Maryland Mentor has made, and how as a mentoring program, we are so excited to know that we will in the future be getting that support also in our DC chapter. That's really powerful in terms of the work being more of a B2B play. How to tell a story of impact can be more challenging for people to understand it. It's the communications challenge we often have, where we want to talk about young people, but mostly we serve the programs who then serve the mentor serving young people, and trying to figure out how to tell that story quickly so it doesn't seem confusing. There is a real power in unifying forces, or what people can call kind of umbrella organizations for a field, but it's often a little bit of a harder story to tell.
Yeah.
I definitely like that, Matt. But maybe even the current DC programs that we work with right now that have received TA consulting work from us. And I was going to let you know, Dina, with the first question that you're asking about, making a story behind this merging. I was going to share with Leslie and the Mentor Prize team that we actually had a program that was like, yeah, we had, a lot of help with Mentor Prize with the recruitment effort. But then we don't know what happened. It just stopped, right? Because they didn't realize this merging was going to happen. So they appreciated the work from Mentor Prize and have been receiving TA from us. So like maybe even having conversations with those programs. Exactly. Yeah.
That's a good one. Which program was that, Sada?
That was actually Kid Power in DC.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that. So basically looking at those organizations that are essentially customers of both and allowing them to see the power as well. I know everybody got to hop off. So next up, it's 10:06. Great conversation. So what are next steps?
I would say let's look at all of these things that we've talked about, take the notes, and determine what's a part of our launch plan, and then work on sequencing. So that, when we do the press release, we've already got Dina's piece online and lots of other components. We've already got your schedule of town halls. So we can put all the pieces together in a timeline and take advantage, symbiotic, take advantage of everything that we're doing.
Do we have a timeline? Like, do we know a date certain when this merger is going to be announced? Or is that part of this conversation that's about to take place after we hang up?
I think the
I'm
short
just
answer
trying to
is
determine my deadline.
Oh, tell Dina it's tomorrow. She'll do it the night before in her all-nighter. I know her too well.
I don't know how to work unless I have a gun to my head.
Yes.
I swear. Just a typical reporter.
There's a last minute for a reason, right?
Yeah, exactly. Got to get that adrenaline going in order to get
breaking news
going.
I'm thinking beginning of April. I mean, I've already started, putting together some, launch activities. So obviously what we want that strategy to look like. So I can share out sort of a very, very rough draft, because I'm out of the office essentially half next week and week after spring break. I'll just say early April. I don't have my calendar right in front of me, but I'll say early April. I'll be able to share some general our general sort of launch activities, sort of what I'm thinking so far, and then we can start just basically putting some timeline around that.
Yeah, I would suggest trying to have as many of your ducks in a row as you can before launch. Like
Absolutely.
there's no rush to launch. So if early April becomes late April, and it means you have all of the swag in hand to reporters, and you have the full plan, all of that together can make for an exciting launch, as opposed to coming soon will be our shirts and hats. You wanna get everything first. So that's just my only piece of advice, including anything you need from us might take a little while. So if it's not 2 weeks from now, but instead it's more like 4 or 5, I guess my question for you all is anything, do we lose anything if we need to delay a little bit to get everything together?
I don't think so. I guess the question is, when we cease, from a legal standpoint, when we cease to exist, I mean, there are filings coming up that we, in April. We have board members who will no longer be board members, who are now still doing placement calls. Will our website still be active? Will we be giving a quiet announcement on our website that will direct people to Mentor without doing I mean, that's what I'm sort of more concerned with in the short term. Is, let's say we close next week. We sign the agreements, and so a lot of the back end work is fine, but what happens to our website? Can we put an announcement there, more to come, or just a brief announcement that will direct potential mentors to, I mean, it's crazy how many applications we continue to get every month without doing anything active. I mean, it's a lot of work for our board members, which is great. I get so excited every day I'm getting another something new. But at what point can we start directing them, just the short term without the big bang?
Yeah, great question there. I would suggest, if Sadiq, if you have the budget, keeping the website live for anyone who does get referred to the site, and then have it kind of auto forward directly to your site when you're ready. Before that, you could have an announcement on that page that Mentor Prize is going to be merging with Maryland Mentor. Here's the link to the Maryland Mentor website. More to come soon. That is a way to ensure you don't lose anybody in this transition. And then when you're ready with all the details, to actually make the public splash.
Yeah.
That can happen after the legal piece is done. This isn't like a late breaking news that if we're not doing any of the public announcement for a couple weeks after it happens, it's not like it's old news at that point.
Yeah.
Right.
So that great question, to make sure we don't lose even a single potential volunteer for a young person like that. That needs to be a priority and can be separate from whatever our public launch plan should look like.
So I guess that's in the short term, if we could agree on how we're going to change the website. I mean, I think I just paid for it's so inexpensive. I paid for 1 year instead of 2 year. I just paid, it was like $40 some to keep it live. I just cut it from 1 year to 2 years. And so if we could just figure out how to do that and what the announcement will say. And, we're listed on several places that take people to our application. And maybe now we want to switch that to take it to your all application for potential mentors. I just want to get that worked out in the short term.
Sure. I think that's more of a smaller group meeting, Leslie, for us to just literally itemize all of these, basically loose ends that we have to just create a game plan to tie up. I think.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're in agreement on what the announcement will say, and that everyone is okay with the marketing and how that's going to fit in to the bigger announcement. That was the only thing I'm concerned. Yeah, we can figure out the details for sure.
Yeah, no, got it. And like we said, creating the announcement is the first part, and then how we're gonna use the announcement when we disseminate the announcement is like the second part of it, which we gotta again coincide with all the other activities to come.
And I just, Sadiq, want to give you credit too. I mean, every one of these conversations, I learn another nugget. So far, the press releases haven't had activities and actions about a name change or anything else. So your idea of doing that and making this actionable makes the press release that isn't that valuable, as we both said, on its own, far more valuable, because there's a call to action that people can send folks to. And that's not something any of our other affiliates have done. So just want to really commend you in that idea. It's awesome.
Sweet. Appreciate you. All right, cool. So we'll be in touch. We'll be in touch. So Matt, you guys are going to send us some mock-up logos. We'll get those out. Amy, Dina will start putting together some language around the expansion story. We need to schedule another meeting to talk some of the launch plan and sequencing and timeline. So I don't know if we want to do that now before we get off, which it's always easier to schedule a meeting where you have everybody here.
I got to run to another meeting. I told them I'd call.
Yeah. We appreciate you, Matt.
Thank you. Put us to work for you. One of the fun things about being the kind of relationship we have with our affiliates is we really get to serve the needs of affiliates. So just keep asking for things. We'll do everything we can. I'm hoping to have the logos to you all soon. And just thank you for the thoughtfulness at which you're approaching this.
No, man, thank you for being here. We appreciate you.
All right, take care.
Everyone, I'm dropping too. Bye.
All right, cool. So I'll send out these notes and we can set the date because I know everybody got to run. We set the date later on.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
I appreciate you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.